What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one armed madman, and with me today we've got author Peter Gunn. Peter, it's a pleasure to have you. Pleasure to meet you. I've been listening to your music all morning and last night. Man, really impressed. Don't take this the wrong way, but like I was not expecting as much as I got out of it. So that's, hopefully a compliment, not like a backhanded compliment, but really impressed with it. How did the music for, super cool that you decided to put out music with your book. How did that come together?
Well, first, thanks for having me, Nick. I appreciate you letting me be here. It's one of those things when you're an entrepreneur and you always are looking to reinvest and reinvent yourself. You'll put back into your brand. Um, I asked my friend Andrew Giordano, who's also a very talented voice actress, to help me redo my Amazon's audiobook. And I figured, okay, we hired like 30 voice actors hired. We're still working on it. All the sound effects are coming in. And what else do you have with a Hollywood style movie is you have a soundtrack. So you're like, okay, I started looking for a band. I myself could, I've been playing guitar for about 6 years now. I'm not the best, I'm not the greatest, but I could hold my own. And I knew that I needed somebody to do vocals though, especially for the Amazons and someone that had a really strong voice. Almost by accident, I came across Leo Sather on Upwork, and then he brought in Max Lang and Ellis Richter. Max is on the keyboard and Ellis is on the drums. And we did about 10 songs together, all for the Amazons, all for the Sigma Squad soundtrack. And we had a blast. We all conservative men, Christian based, and we have a lot of similar opinions on stuff. So we meshed really well, and that's why we decided to make a go of it, so you can make a band and put out an album after we finished the contract. And I worked out rather well. I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
That's super cool, man. And like one of the things I enjoyed about it is it wasn't like over the top, like hits you in the face with Christian theology type of thing, kind of like how Creed
Yeah.
was. Like
Well,
Creed.
that was my stopping point. I do not want to preach. I do not want to preach. I refuse to sound like I'm preaching. Like with Lilith lust, okay, I accuse it on a demon that's tempting you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that aspect. Like I always loved Creed, when I was younger. My parents were relatively young, so they listened to Creed when I was a younger kid. And like I didn't know it was a Christian band until I was older, because
Yeah.
like those themes are, they hit home for everybody, themes of freedom and temptation and fate and like all of these things like really ring true with people regardless if they're religious or not. And like I feel like it hits home, for everybody, regardless of your religious affiliation or your spiritual, how spiritual you are. And like I have always felt like music should have a purpose in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So like I
Hmm.
was having a conversation with my little brother a couple of months ago. He's young, he's like 12. And really into AC/DC. His dad's classic rock guy, and he's not branched out and broadened his horizons in any way, and he's just really into AC/DC. And I was trying to explain to him, like, "Look, dude, like, AC/DC has a purpose. Like, it's cool for getting hyped up at a football game or, like, keeping you awake while you're driving, but there's nothing deep going on there. They're essentially just like a hedonistic band that talks about
Yeah.
sex and partying, and that's about it. Like a lot of their songs sound very similar, and like you got to get into some stuff that like actually has something to say. Like I was big into punk rock when I was a young kid, not like the older punk rock, but like Offspring and Bad Religion and the Misfits and stuff like that. And like those, Pennywise is one of my, I was from California. I lived in Southern California for a while, so like Pennywise was really my go-to for stuff like that. And they're talking about real things and real life. I'm wearing my Black Sabbath sweatshirt. Like they talked about real things, war, evil, like
Hmm.
temptation.
Hmm.
Like these are These are real life
Yeah.
things that affect everybody. Metallica is the same way. They talked about a lot of different things. And, a lot of these bands like Sabbath or Metallica, like Pennywise, they didn't go mainstream for a reason. Like a lot of the stuff that they were talking about is not popular with the mainstream,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they don't want that to be popular with the mainstream. So there's no surprise that they never made it big onto the radio or anything like that. Like Sabbath and Metallica, like these are bands that were going against the grain and became popular despite what they were singing about?
Well, there's a fine line that you have to stay on between preaching and just music. You don't want to, and
Yeah.
I think that's the downfall of anyone that incorporates Christianity or religion into their music is they start preaching, and that people stop listening.
Yep.
They
Exactly.
don't like it.
Yep. I'm a writer and I've been working on a sci-fi book for a long time. It takes me a while to type. I'm doing it all on my iPad with one finger, so it takes a long time. And like in the beginning, like I'm a libertarian, which is not important for this conversation really. I don't want to preach as we're talking about. And like that was one of the things that I struggled with early on in the book, where like the main character is essentially me up to a certain point, and then our lives deviate and we go on different paths essentially. And he's going to have like kind of the same ideology that I live on, but I didn't want it like in the beginning I was going too much into like that type of theory, um explaining too much. And I finally started reading it. I was going, you know what? Like this is getting preachy and this is turning into something that is not going to be as entertaining. And I kind of dialed that all back and made his actions speak more than his words, and his actions kind of be grounded in that, ideology rather than him preaching to the rest of the people around him about it because, you know, I want to make something good. I want to make something entertaining. I want to write something that I would enjoy. Sorry about my dog. He's going crazy. That I would enjoy listening to, and I don't like
Mhm.
listening to people preach. Like the last thing I want to do is hear about your like political ideals when I'm reading a first contact novel.
I like breaking the rules.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are like, like if you write a book in first person, you have to stay that way. I'm like, oh, bullshit.
Yeah.
If you read the Amazons, it's first person in the protagonist's father, then it's the second chapter or second stanza is first person in the protagonist's point of view, and then it takes over third person.
Yeah.
So then you get to know both the father and the son really well, how they think, how they operate, and then it goes into the story, the bulk of it.
Yeah, no, I actually do the same thing in my book where like there's a main character and a villain and it's separated into three different parts. So like part 1 is a first person narrative where you're following the main character of the book and you only really know what he knows. You can't really tell what other people are thinking or how they are perceiving the actions of others. And then when you go and start following the villain, like the main character kind of gets put into, without giving it away, like he gets put into this, computer program essentially where he gets to follow this villain throughout time and see how he became who he is. And he follows that guy in a third person narrative where, he gets to kind of see everything essentially, which is it's an interesting exercise in writing because I feel like writing in the third person is a bit easier for me, where the first person is a little bit harder. Not like harder to tell the story or anything like that, but the actual like mechanics of the writing is a little.
Well, you have to be that character, not yourself. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. And I try not to use too many I statements
takes
and
a vivid
like
imagination. Then, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's an interesting thing. How did you become a writer?
I found it healing. After I got back from Afghanistan, especially. Now, I've always written poetry, love poetry, and love music myself personally. But I found it healing after I got back from Afghanistan. Had an incident out there. I could have perished, almost did, but I didn't. So I lucked out. But I found it very healing and therapeutic, and that's why I started getting more into writing and poetry. And I found it helps me focus, so I'm not thinking about the other things.
I was interested in this girl when I was younger. I was living in San Francisco And I was a drug addict when I was younger. I was just a total piece of shit, and I was homeless for a while. And right as I'm getting my life back together, I like start get interested in this girl, and we go down to we're just like walking around the mission one night with a group of friends, and there's this like poetry thing going on. It's like a poetry circle essentially, and I'm, already interested in this chick, and then we're watching this poetry thing, which was cool. Like, I'm an artsy guy, like, I'm interested in this stuff, so, like, a lot of people would be like, "Ah, this is boring," but, like, I was interested in it, and I wanted to hear that, and it's something that like I wasn't really into as a kid. Like, I was never really, like my parents weren't artsy people, and, like, I just was never really exposed to things like that, and as we're watching, all of a sudden, she's like, "Alright, I'm gonna go do it." Like, "Huh? Like, just gonna make it up on the spot type of thing?" Like, not thinking in my head, like, "Oh, maybe she's actually into stuff like this," and then she goes out and just drops this awesome fucking poem, and I was just like, "Oh,
That's awesome.
man. I'm hooked." Like, this chick's awesome.
That's awesome.
So, tell me a little bit about your near-death experience. I had one myself. I'll, quickly just kind of recap mine. So, like, I I was working on power lines. Uh, I'm, you know, up in North Dakota in the middle of nowhere, and we're
Oh
working
yeah,
on
North Dakota. Anywhere in North Dakota is the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's the worst place in the country. It was just, oh man, terrible place. Anyways, I'm working on this pole where I'm working on a neutral line underneath hot lines, and I remember climbing up the pole, and then I look over at my buddy to see how far along he is on his pole because it's always kind of a race. You're racing
Yeah.
your crew to get the work done faster. And then I wake up looking at the sky, and I think that I fell. Holy shit, how did I fall? And I start reaching for the ground and there's no ground there. I'm like, "Oh crap." I was like, "I'm still on the pole. Like, what the hell happened?" And then all of a sudden pain just, engulfs my entire body. And, I kind of realize immediately that I got electrocuted. And it took hours to get me to a burn unit, and it was a whole thing. I was in a burn unit for 3 months, but I didn't have like I didn't have the near death experience where I got to see the light and kind of have my life flash before my eyes or anything like that. Like, I literally have this chunk of missing time where I don't remember what happened. But the weird part about it is that, like, I've knocked myself out on a dirt bike many times. I've knocked myself out playing football and basketball.
Oh
Like,
yes, it's normal childhood. Yeah.
yeah, in normal childhood back in the day, right? And so, like, I know what it feels like to get knocked out, and, like, this didn't feel like that. To me, it felt like I could have been gone for 30 seconds or 30,000,000 years. Like, it was just this weird, like, chunk of time where time stood still, and
Oh,
I
that's normal with NDEers. Even myself personally, in my story, time seemed to like not exist.
yeah, that's kind of how it was, and I kind of
Yeah.
feel like that I know there's something there. I know something happened in that amount of time beyond just, like, hurting myself physically, and I kind of feel like a computer with, like, a file that's jacked up. But like you sent me an email, the first email that you sent me, it's it's there on my computer. I can see that it's there, but it won't open and there's no data to it and I can't see beyond the fact that I know that it's a file that is in that
Mhm.
memory somewhere that I can't access. And I feel like somebody or something deleted that or blocked it out to where I can't see it. Did you experience anything like that?
Mine, I remember almost everything. So mine came about when I was about 7 years old. So I was very young, and this was in the early '80s. And it was a particularly hot day, and I was left alone, had to do chores out in the yard. And when you're that young, you don't realize the signs and symptoms of heat stroke coming in,
Yeah.
which they were starting to affect me. And then I remember because my body started going into shock. You feel very tired normally then, unfortunately, and I lay down. Okay, and I started. My body continued to cook, and I passed. the next thing I remembered was waking up in what people refer to as their light body. So it's like the opposite of a black and white picture. You're made out of white light, but you're transparent. I could see through myself. And I looked down, saw myself laying in the ground, and then a tunnel, dark tunnel with a white light at the end of it, formed above me. And I immediately started being pulled up into it. There was an angel there to greet me, and I immediately started being shown like a past review, a review of my past life, but being seven, it went rather fast, but the sense of time, it almost seemed like it happened like instantaneously, snap a finger, you know. After the life review, I was brought over to a gate, but there was another angel there waiting for me. He was quite cross, he was upset, and as soon as I saw him, though, I had a feeling of deja vu, like I knew him. I've dealt with this angel before sometime in my life. I don't know. It's just, to this day I still don't know. But he said, "Your job isn't done. You have to go back." And the next thing I remember is waking up in my body, paramedics hovering over me, and trying to figure out what just went on, what just happened. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I talked to a Buddhist at one point about like what happened to me, and she kind of had a similar take on it, that like we all come from the same place in the beginning,
Yeah.
and that we all go back there in the end. And we kind of, she kind of believed in reincarnation in a way, not like so much that like your soul, goes to heaven and then comes back and into another person, but more like you're kind of reabsorbed by the whole and then split off again to kind of experience something new. And her take on it was, is like, you didn't remember that for a reason. And that reason is essentially that, like, if you did remember being reincorporated into the whole at some point, it would be your true existence in a way. And that if you were capable of remembering that true existence, you would not want to be here on earth going through all the hardships
Oh yeah,
and the
I'll
trials
say
and
that right off the bat.
tribulations.
The feeling of love. As soon as I started traveling up that tunnel, the feeling of love that encompassed me, I can't describe it with words. It filled every cell of my body, and it made me let me know that everything in the world, in the universe, is right at this time. And I've never felt anything. The only thing I could say in our three-dimensional world that's close to it is like when you're a little kid and your mother comes up and hugs you, and then you feel safe and warm.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could describe it, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, man. Like like I said earlier, like I was a piece of shit when I was younger, and I've had some times in my life where like, things have gone really bad for me. And typically like when I was in those periods of time, like I would have this like longing to go home and just be like safe and warm and have that kind of feeling of like
Hmm.
home around
Yeah.
you, right? And at some point, like, I always assumed that this was like the house that I grew up in, was that feeling, right? And at some point, like get hurt. This is later on after I, get clean off of drugs and everything like that. And I buy a house in Idaho, and I realized at some point like I wasn't yearning for a house. It wasn't like the place that I grew up in. It was somewhere else. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
kind of like had that realization at one point. It was like I'm, I think we all go through that at times of like true despair and pain, where you want to go to the place where we're all from at some point and
Yeah.
we'll all go
Yeah.
to in the end.
A lot of people that get woken up or have NDEs have a feeling that they don't belong here. Like it's just temporary, and they know it deeper in their soul, even though they can't explain why. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that makes sense. So let's talk about your books a little bit here. How did you
Okay.
What's how many books do we got going on? What are we talking about here? Like which books do you want to talk about?
Well, we can talk about my Sigma Squad, which I think your audience would probably like the most, even though it's still at work. It's not going to be released until, knock on wood, next March next year. So, but it's going to dive into conspiracy theories. It's going to show Joe Sixpack what's going on behind the scenes
Very
in a
cool.
more palatable way.
And this is so I'm looking at like a graphic novel version right now. Is this
Yes.
available now for people to check out? And this is just kind
No,
of
it's
like
still in work. It's the graphic
still in work.
novel. Now the
Okay,
Amazons, if the Amazon poetry is, they can download that at Kindle or on my website. And also the album, if they want to listen to the album, they could go to any of the music apps and just type in Hazing Hades, the name of the album, the name of the band, the Angelics. They can download that. But Sigma Squad is still in work. We ran into, we say, a lot of setbacks. So, and that's also partially me. Like I keep adding and want to make changes.
yeah.
So, and nothing's ever good enough. You know, if it gets my step, it went through like I went through it a million times.
Are you doing all the artwork on it?
Right now, I have a team of artists helping me. So when it's done, I'll probably have done 20, 25% of the artwork myself.
Cool.
Because when you're an entrepreneur, you soon learn you can't do everything yourself.
You
You
got to
have to have help.
delegate.
You have to build a team up that supports you. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I mean, human civilization is built on specialization. And a lot of
Yeah.
times when you realize that you're not as good at something as somebody else, you're better off delegating it to them and getting the best product out of it rather than sacrificing, kind of the integrity of the project for the pride of doing it yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's I you know I'll if it takes longer, it takes longer. I'm not going to put it out there with that. I'm not going to put my step of through on there unless it's ready.
You know what? One of the things I was thinking about when I was listening to your music that and like I'm sure my audience is sick of me talking about this, but I have to like talk about this with all the writers that I talk to because I think it's so cool that like I'm one of the things like I'm personally most excited about for artificial intelligence is that it's going to allow people like you and some of the smaller authors and even the bigger authors that I read to like bring their work to life in a different
Oh,
way.
the song "Heartbreak Hit." That's me singing it, and if it wasn't for AI helping my voice out, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
And that was
Yes.
actually one of my favorite songs on the album. I thought that one was really
Yes,
good.
it's just straight to the point. Yes. There's a certain X in my past that I needed to say that to, and it's like, oh yeah, I got that off of my
Yeah, I bet it feels good to
off
get it
my
out there.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And just for people, like, listening, like, it for me, it was, very hair metal, in a lot of ways. It had some actual metal going on to it. A really great listen. Just,
Well,
saying.
it's funny is we initially were going to call the album Divination after the last song, and we actually were joking because we decided to call it Hazing Hades because there was actual hazing happening between us. When they, when they proposed first starting a band, they're all talking amongst themselves like, "Hey, we got to see what I'm made of." So they gave me the word "sugar tits," which I'm sure you heard in the
I did.
song, and
I
they said
did.
every '80s band has a heartbreak song. So we want you to write a heartbreak song. We want you to vocalize it, and you have to use the word "sugar tits" in it. So I had to do everything.
That's funny. That's funny. Anyways, back to the AI thing. So, like, one of the things I was thinking about while I was listening to the music is like, it would be super cool if you were able to like pump your graphic novel into artificial intelligence and create like music videos behind these things and
We're doing that right. We're doing that right
I
now.
had a feeling
Yeah,
you were. There's
it's
a
different. Yeah.
there's an album on I think it's it could still be on Netflix. It might be everywhere now, but Sturgill Simpson did an album. This is a couple years ago now, maybe even 5 or 6. Like time flies as you start to get old, right? And it's like a graphic novel kind of that's just his album. So like he put his album out on Netflix and there's just all this really cool like anime style art that's going on like throughout the album. It's a really cool listen, watch however you want to state it, but Yeah, man, like, I think that would be super cool is having, like you said, like, making these into music videos and kind of like, I read a lot of books, I read a ton of sci-fi, and a lot of the people that I read have very expensive imaginations, and it's, like, really hard to bring these, stories to a big screen because it would cost so much money and,
Oh yeah,
especially like, with like an Alistair Reynolds Revelation Space, like that's an expensive movie to make also,
I
like
was quoted $250 million for 10 minutes.
yeah. Yeah, I can believe it. But we're
Mhm.
at a point finally now where, like I remember when I watched the last Avatar, like I got a bunch of shit on the internet because I said like I think we've reached peak AI with Avatar movies at this point. Like I don't see it getting much better. Like when I was a kid, they always said like, "Oh, these CGI is going to get better because it's going to get cheaper and easier to make and people are gonna love it and blah, 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 blah. But that didn't really happen. Like these movies are getting more expensive to make, even though the technology is getting cheaper and easier to use. And less people are going to the movie theaters. So, like, how are you going to create another $2 billion franchise if people aren't packing theaters to go watch it? So, like, I think it's going to be a more like decentralized movement where people like you are going to be able to take your graphic novel and take your books and pump them into these AI engines and say, create me, a 6 episode series on my graphic novel where people who enjoy the novel can go onto your YouTube channel and like watch this short version of it.
Mhm.
There's a movie called or a show called Final Space that's like an animated show that it was a great show. It had a couple of seasons run. It was really good. And it started with a YouTube video. Like the guy who created the IP and created the characters and did all the voices, he made a short YouTube video called Final Space and it was animated and it got just like a ton of traction on YouTube and they ended up turning it into a series. And I think if that were to happen today, where somebody was to put out like an animated show of their own, I don't know that it necessarily goes to a streaming service. It might just stay on YouTube because they're going to be able to pump it into an AI engine and create it themselves. Is it going to be as good as a Netflix series? No, it's not going to be that good because a professional human that knows what they're doing is always going to be able to do a better job than a computer, especially in the fine tuning aspect of it. But is it gonna be good enough to watch and enjoy? Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even approach Hollywood anymore. I've been to one of the big conventions that they have with that's full of producers and ooh, wait, you want to talk about snobs? These
Yeah.
people are not down to earth and they're not approachable. They're so it's hard to talk to them. And I mean, I got in there a little bit and made some contacts, but it's like they really don't want newbies in there. They really don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
unless they know your name. Yeah, we want to talk to you.
It's a small club and you ain't in it.
Yes, exactly.
So tell me a bit about the, conspiracies that you kinda tackle in these books. What kinda piques your interest with
Well,
these?
in my so to say quest for knowledge, I'm taking conspiracy theories. Just to give you an idea, I often joked that if there was such a this thing as a right wing, my mother would be falling off of it. And I mean, so I was 5 years old knowing what the New World Order was, just to give you an idea, a basis of where I come from. Um, I was going through a lot of biblical references and prophecy and stuff like that. And I came across the Gnostic gospel, and of course, I'm looking for answers for myself as well with my NDE. Is it normal? And I'm looking not just in the Bible, but in other writings. And the Gnostic Gospels really appeal to me because they talk about different levels of humanity. Okay, and they're like the matics at the top, the psychics at the center, and the hylics at the bottom. I'm like, that's pretty interesting, But how and but everything. And I started investigating. It's like it's actually legit what they're saying. It's actually legit. There is references in modern society that actually happened. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But then I look at like what they define as the highlights, the lower half. Like,
Mhm.
how would you split up humanity in the three levels? That then I started looking into the Gospels of Thomas because they're a yanked. from the Bible. Everything that was gained from the Bible, I started reading the book of Enoch. But the Gospels of Thomas were in Coptic. So I had to start teaching myself Coptic. Yes, I'm a nerd. I'll admit it.
Yeah, I am as well. I can't help
And
it.
there was one word in there that stuck in my head because I initially mispronounced in Genesis where it said Eve. We all knew Eve took the fruit from the tree of knowledge, but in the Coptic, it could be interpreted as his penis, as his seed. So I'm like trying to figure this out. Like I even asked the professor, "Am I reading that new Coptic? And am I reading this right?" Because it looked like there's a this is for reading it, there's a small indent in the page, a small little line that changes it from fruit to penis. Okay, and to seed. I'm like, well, which is it? He just puts up his arm like I don't know, you know. So I refuse to go with the mainstream interpretation. Like, okay, well, let's just say hypothetically that Eve had slept with the devil. Okay, um, what did they cover up? They covered up their genitals when God found them. They covered up with leaves. Okay, so like, oh, that's interesting. So if it was a fruit she ate, she would have covered over her mouth, but she didn't. She covered over her genitals. Okay, let's think. Let's think about further. Then it tells you who was the first child. It was Cain. Cain was the first child, and what did Cain do? He killed his brother. Interesting. Now it's not in the human psyche unless you're forced to kill another. But then I'm saying, like, I'm insinuating this hypothesis that Cain was of the devil's seed because Eve slept with him. Okay. And that is the Hylics. That is the other people that are living amongst us. They look like humans. Genetically, they're different. Why do you think all the elites try to keep their bloodline? That's their bloodline right there. That's their bloodline. That's what they're trying to keep. These are the
Interesting.
people that don't feel empathy. These are the people that love money, the greed, all the things that are opposite of a human. Okay, and they live among us. They look, breathe, and feel exactly just like us, but they're not. They're genetically different, and it's it's scary to say that to think about it, but I believe it's true. I really do.
Interesting. Like, I don't know a ton about the Gnostics. I did watch a couple of YouTube videos before we started this morning, just to kind of give me a little bit of a point of reference on it. And one of the videos that I watched was pretty interesting. It was talking about like secret knowledge essentially, and like how knowledge has been hidden from human beings in every culture in the history of the world essentially, and like it was kind of comparing the serpent, Anki from, the Sumerians, Prometheus from the Greeks, Jesus, that these were all people that were persecuted for giving humanity knowledge. Jesus clearly was, hung on the cross. You
Hmm.
got Anki. I don't remember exactly what happened to him, but like Prometheus, Prometheus bound, he was, bound to a rock for all of eternity where an eagle comes and eats his liver every day. And one of the, like, I got paid to go to college after I got hurt as like a retraining thing, and it was just a total waste of my time. But like the only interesting class that I took was on like Greek mythology and faith, and like I read Prometheus Bound in that class, and just like what an interesting story how like you know and like it truly is like true that in every culture knowledge has been hidden from us for the
Oh yeah,
most part
you have to
even
start looking for
today.
it.
Not what's going on with X versus the X, the social media site, versus the mainstream media right now. The entire mainstream media and corporate class and governmental class is freaking out because we are getting knowledge that we're not meant to have. you know you've got there's politicians right now on X that are getting ratioed on every post that they make, and
Mhm.
they don't know what to do about it. They can't get the genie back into the bottle at this point, and I don't think they're done. Like right now the corporate media
Oh
is
no, no.
is
If you want another conspiracy, and it happened to me. I saw someone do it. And they did it on TikTok. I did it myself. Tested it. I had a friend. I had a couple of buddies do it. They tested it. Type in September like headline September 10th, 2025 into Chat GPT. It refuses to acknowledge Charlie Kirk is dead.
really
Who who has control over that? who would benefit from that?
This is something I was thinking about recently. I'm like into this like younger dryas impact hypothesis and the flood is real and like all of this type of shit.
Oh yeah,
And
it is, the flood is real.
yeah.
Yes.
And so like I was watching this podcast about the Sphinx and like I know all about the Sphinx. Like this is something I've been into for a long time. So it's not anything new to me. But I kind of decided like, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what it thinks about the age of the Sphinx. And I kind of ask it about it. And it immediately like poo-poos Robert Schock and John Anthony West and it's like, oh, it's
Yep.
2,500 years old and blah 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 blah. And like all of the evidence that it gets are like easily debunkable things. And then I kind of like it kind of hit me. I was like, this thing is a fallacy machine where it's
Right.
essentially an appeal to authority machine. There's been so much written about the Sphinx in, scientific papers that is the only pool that it's pulling from. And it looks at these
Yep.
papers as an authority on the subject, and it's always going to give you the authority on the subject rather than digging into like some of these YouTube people or like these guys are doing a great job at debunking this type of thing, but it's
Keep
never
in
gonna look
mind,
into that.
these quote unquote authorities were paid off
Yeah.
to fit a certain narrative, just like all the doctors about the COVID vaccine being safe, and they're paid off.
Yeah. I mean, the guy who ran Egypt, what's his name? Zahi Was was on Joe Rogan,
He's
like,
yeah,
a
he's
while back, and dude, the guy was just embarrassing. It's like this comedian podcaster was able to expose you as a paid shill to, like, keep this
yeah.
knowledge from all of us in just a couple of hours. Like,
Mhm.
imagine what somebody who is actually, like, really into this stuff could do to that guy on a public stage.
Yeah.
That guy will probably never make another public appearance like that again.
They need someone new in there. He's not doing a good job. It's blatantly obvious he's covering over.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, dude, there's so much there that
Oh
people
yeah.
would love to learn about. And like, we need somebody with money to come in there and go, like, we need to get to the bottom of this shit. Like, what's going on with the pyramid? What's going on with the Sphinx? What is
Is it a
underneath?
generator? Is it a burial site? What is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what is going on with this thing? We need to know this. Like, this is something like, if we don't understand our past, how are we supposed to move forward into the future? Like, we need to know what happened. We need to know about the flood. We need to be able to stop this from happening again. Was it a was it a solar event? Was it a comet? Was it a mix of the two? Like, what happened and how do we stop this from happening again? And like, was it the magnetic pole shift? Like, that's another big one where right now,
Yep.
like, even mainstream science will tell you that the pole is moving a lot right now. And what happens when the pole does shift? Well, they'll tell you that nothing happens, but there's a lot of smart people on the internet that says they're full of shit.
Yeah. They're even talking about time getting slower.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There was an interesting thing that just came out from I remember like reading in 2012 like about the end of the Mayan calendar and the end of the world type of shit. And it was like what if and there was one theory that was like what if we live in a black hole? And that's why like information seems to be changing in the Mandela effect and like time seems to be weird and it seems like we're just hit with crazy amounts of information with all sorts of different things every day that we can't comprehend and it doesn't seem to be like Elon Musk's theory about the simulation where like the most entertaining outcome is the most likely because boring simulations will be shut down. Well, the James
I
Webb
like
Space
Occam's razor, but yeah, I hear you.
yeah. So, anyways, the James Webb Space Telescope had a really interesting find a couple of months ago where if you look at distant galaxies, you should find that they're spinning in different directions, one clockwise, the other counterclockwise, at about a 50-50 rate. Like that just makes sense if we live in a chaotic universe where there's no order to anything or no, high strangeness going on beyond like things that we can explain. They should be spinning at 50-50, but they're not. I don't remember the direction, but like most of the galaxies are spinning in the same direction. And one of the answers to why this could possibly happening is black hole cosmology, where essentially like there's mainstream science will poo-poo on all of the Bible's miracles, but they believe in their own miracle, which is the Big Bang,
Yeah.
right? And the Big
Mhm.
Bang is a singularity, and a singularity
It's bullshit.
happens in a black hole. So, like, it's possible that every black hole is an entrance to a different universe, and we are
Yeah,
actually
I
living
agree with you.
in a
I agree
black
with you. Yeah,
hole, which is
yeah,
so
I agree with you.
strange. So what else about the Gnostics? What other interesting things piqued your interest about these things, about these texts? Like, where did you go with this?
Well, they talk about what the monad, or what they consider God, splitting an angel in two, because an angel has no male or he's not male or female. He's both sort of, and then sending them down to earth and calling them Aeons. And I decided to incorporate that into the book. So he sends down the Aeons to the earth, because now it's, the book takes place in Revelation, so basically right now, and to perform a reverse rapture, basically on the deep state. So he's going to clean off the members of the deep state, one by one, killing them off using his Aeons as assassins.
Interesting. What do you think angels are? Like, I've always been torn on angels. Like, I read a book recently that kind of explained them off as just advanced aliens that ancient people had no reference to kind of be able to figure out. And I don't know, I kind of thought that was a bit of a lazy explanation. Like, I think there's more going on than meets the eye. And I
Well,
think,
they're number one, they're not infallible because Lucifer was an angel, so and he made a mistake.
yeah, yeah. So like I've always thought there's more going on, good and evil. And I've kind of felt like that angels, demons, UFOs are kind of probably related to the same thing. Like we didn't have any reference for a UFO until science fiction kind of came out, right? And like if
Hmm.
these things have been here for a long time and are watching us or interfering with us in some way, like I would think that they would appear in a fashion that we are capable of making sense of. And thousands of years ago, when we didn't have anything like science fiction, what's an alien at that point? Like we didn't even know that other planets existed. They didn't know what stars were and
Well, you
any of
have
that
to
crap.
learn, like, if you're reading ancient works or like the Bible, you have to read through metaphors, the parables, and the symbolism. So a lot of times they'll talk about statues. Okay, when they're talking about revelations, things are going to happen now. What they mean by statue is a robot, because they had no other point of reference back then. When John was having visions, okay, he used the word statue, but that he obviously means robot.
Yeah. Another interesting thing too is like I've always found like DMT and mushrooms to be very interesting because I feel like they give you a window into things that we can't perceive in our normal day-to-day lives, like maybe things that our brains aren't capable of comprehending yet, and something that maybe we will be able to comprehend, thousands of years from now, evolution keep going with our brains. And I always like I heard a story, this has been a while that I've heard the story, but that like Moses and the burning bush, like that acacia bush has DMT in it, and it's possible that
Mhm.
like he was tripping and he got to see beyond the veil and like actually talk to somebody or something and get some true hidden knowledge that we weren't capable of perceiving at the time. Like there's I feel like there's so much more to the
But
world.
you heard about the laser lights with DMT, right?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
You go to Home Depot and buy the laser level lights, okay, and you shine it on a wall, and make it a little bit wider. So you know what I'm talking about
Yep,
now?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep, I do. And you can kind of see, yeah. Explain it fully so people that are listening can kind of get it.
Okay. You shine it on the wall, and then you take the DMT or some sort of psychedelic, and then you wait for it to kick in, and then when you look into the laser light, you will see code like the Matrix, like, and you will see through the wall to the other side. Everything is then made out of code.
super interesting, right? And like, gosh,
Yeah.
the simulation theory is so interesting.
But
Like I said,
that almost debunks it.
almost right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and who knows what's actually going on? Philip K. Dick's one of the great classic sci-fi writers has had an interesting theory where his book, Man in the High Castle, it kind of depicts a world where the Nazis and the Japanese won World War II, and the Nazis
Mhm.
control the East Coast of the United States, and the Japanese control the West Coast of the United States. And it kind of explores like how this would have happened if it actually happened. But the rub is that he believes that it did actually happen, and that like within the simulation at some point, whoever's programming it changed the rules and changed the outcome and decided that America did win the World War
Well,
II.
Operation Paperclip. We got all our Nazis over here to help us.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I was it things bother me every once in a while. I don't typically go onto social media much, like especially Facebook. I just am not into Facebook anymore. Like it's just such a cesspool and it's like older people now that are
It's
just
like asking the
complaining.
CIA to watch you even more than they already do. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, no
exactly.
thanks.
And, one of my buddies that I was friends with when I lived in San Francisco made this post, and it was like it was Eisenhower with a bunch of his, like, colonels and, military buddies sitting next to him, and the caption was, "Eisenhower and his anti-fascists," and I'm just like, God, man. Like, Eisenhower funded tons of Nazi scientists from, that are war criminals that like murdered children and killed tons of people. And he funded these people through his entire presidency. So, like, let's back off of this anti fascist crap. Like, anybody in power has done horrible, awful things at this point. And,
It's
like,
all a puppet show. All politics is just a show to get you to not look at what they don't want you to see.
yeah.
It's just that they're just acting. It's a soap opera.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They want you to argue about race and, sexuality and all of these wedge issues to keep you from like looking at the big picture. And like the big picture right now, especially, is that these people, no matter which party, they're going to print more money than the party before them.
Yeah.
They're gonna destroy the currency. Like, right now, you have to invest your money. There's nothing like, if you're just holding dollars right now, you're just getting raped and pillaged by the people in power, and, like, that's the
Mhm.
true game. Keep these
That's
people
what they want.
occupied so they don't realize that we're stealing from them and destroying the future of their children and grandchildren. Like my little brother, I was telling him the other day about like he doesn't really get politics or any of this type of crap. And I was kind of telling him that, so I'm like, dude, right now, your grandkids are already in debt. They're never gonna get Social Security. They're never gonna get any of the things that you were promised. Like, you probably won't get Social Security. I may not get Social Security at this point. You may not get Social Security at this point. Like, these people are raping and pillaging us on a
Yeah.
daily basis, and like that's the real game, is to extract as much wealth from this dying empire as they possibly can.
No, I agree. I agree. It's a shame. I feel sorry for like Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I mean, that's coming up. I don't know what they're going to do or where they're going to go.
Huh.
Honestly.
I mean, good luck buying a house at this point. Like, my
Yeah.
mom and her husband, they're resigned to the fact that he's probably going to live with them until he's 30 years old. Because what else is he going to do? Right now
Mhm.
the average age of a first-time home buyer in this country is 39. That's crazy. My mom bought a house when she was 17. You know, she was still in high school and she got a deal,
Mhm.
had a decent job. My dad had a decent job and they bought a house. Well, my mom bought it, but and he, got onto it later because she was
Yeah.
able to get it. But anyway, 17, and now, dude, you can't even buy a car when you're 17. Cars are so insanely expensive at this point, and like they don't even last. Toyota,
No, they're crap.
my buddy has a Toyota pickup with a 22 RE engine in it that's got 350,000 miles. Something goes wrong with it, you can fix it in a day with minimal parts. And a newer Toyota, you can buy a newer Toyota Tacoma that's maybe going to get you 100,000 miles before the thing
If
goes
you're
to
lucky.
shit. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're lucky. All these regulations and smog bullshit that they put on these things. makes them, more like prone to catastrophic failure
It's
essentially.
they,
It's
they engineer
disgusting.
obsolescence into all the cars. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, dude, my microwave just went out. I've owned my house for 11 years. On my fourth microwave now. Like, how is that possible? You could go to any trailer park in this country and find a microwave from the 80s or 90s, guaranteed.
yeah,
And they would still
yeah.
be lasting. They're still going to work. And today, on my third $300 or $400 microwave. It's insane. And like this is the business model is rape these people for as much as you possibly can, you know, give them the minimal quality. Like my aunt just had to buy a new washer and dryer because she bought a house here in Idaho. She moved here from Southern California. And you know, we told her like basically buy the cheapest one or the one with the longest warranty. Because no matter
Usually
how
want to go for Speed Queen.
yeah, because like no matter how much you spend on one of these washers and dryers, it's gonna go to shit in a couple years anyways. So might as well get the cheapest one you can or get the best warranty that you can because that's the only way you're gonna be able to get any time out of these damn things. It's crazy. So what else do you want to tell us about your books? What else goes on interesting there? Any other interesting things about the Gnostics we should know about?
Well, first off, it's not going to be out till next March because I'm working on it. You can download the Amazons right now. That's me bringing in the feminine in the hero's journey because when I had my daughter in 2010, I wanted to enroll her as any parent does into the things they love to do. So I love poetry, love the classics, stuff like that. And I really quickly noticed that there's no females in the hero's journey. I mean, you got Beowulf, you got the Odyssey, you got all male dominated. Like, why would a young girl want to read this or pick it up? Unless it's supposedly assigned to her in school to read it. So I decided to do something about it, and that's why I decided to develop the Amazons. And then, of course, I had to I wanted to bring it into the current 2025, something that Gen Z, Gen Alpha can understand. And of course, one thing we all know they understand is rap music. So that's why I invented LLP. It's not only recognized as poetry, okay, because of its rhyme scheme, but then it's unique in the fact that it resembles rap enough. So then they can understand it. It's theirs basically. It's for Gen Z, Gen Alpha. It's bringing poetry, the classics, into 2025, into the current day.
Interesting. Do you is it harder for you to write female characters than males?
No. I mean, with the Amazons, okay, they have encompassed in themselves the masculine. So they're very masculine females. Okay, you think of the Spartans, except they're all women.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean another thing about Gen Z and Gen Alpha is they they have no capability of like sitting down and watching a movie or
Oh, that's why I
reading a
made
book,
it.
which
It's
is
a small enough. It's the chapters are small enough. It's small pieces where a short attention span should be able to get through it. And the book isn't. I didn't make it that long. I'm not writing a complete novel because I knew their attention span isn't the greatest.
yeah, it's really crazy. Like I keep telling my little brother, I'm like, hey man, you got to watch some of these older movies and listen to some of this older music because someday, like he's on homeschool, so like he still has friends that he plays hockey and rides dirt bikes, so like he still has friends, but he's not around like a ton of people like me and you grew up going to
Yeah,
normal public schools, and I keep telling him like, dude, one day you're gonna get a girlfriend and she's gonna know all of these pop culture references that you're gonna have no freaking idea about, and you're gonna wish that you watched all of this crap because you're gonna have no idea what she's talking about, or you're gonna run into friends and you're gonna have no idea what they're talking about. Like you got to get yourself to like do this at some point, but God, and the kid, dude, work ethic with these younger kids, it's like
that makes
it's
me think
crazy.
of our song "Digital Dungeon," talking about the dopamine hit that we recorded. Yeah,
That was a good
it's
one
the same.
too. I like I
Yeah,
said, I really enjoyed the album. The first song, what was that one called? The
the
um
adjusters.
the Adjusters. That one was good. Had a little bit more of
Yeah.
a metal feel to it. Like I
Mhm.
enjoyed that one too. There was yeah. It was a great album, man. I'm sure you had a lot of fun producing that, and it's such a cool idea to add a soundtrack to a book, like,
Yeah, it
the
is. It is.
the book that I'm writing, like, features a lot of the music that I grew up listening to, like I said earlier, punk rock, Southern California punk rock, Sabbath, Ozzy, Metallica, stuff like that, and I feature a lot of music in the book, like, there's a revolution within the book where the main character kind of helps this futuristic city to realize that they're essentially slaves for a ruling class that just wants them for, you know, essentially to be cattle. And a lot of that
Sounds like
is
the Hunger Games a little bit.
kind of a little bit. It's a little more cyberpunk than that. Um, but like one of the ways that he's able to like wake these people up and show them like what's going on in the world is through music because like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they have like no attention span. They don't know how to read. They've kind of this
Mhm.
is like a post-apocalyptic world where everybody else lives like slaves except for this futuristic city that is kind of shut off from the rest of the world, and they have been raised to be cattle and not to look at anything. So instead of like giving them an 800-page book to read, he gives them music. And so like I every chapter of my book is titled after. It sucks that you can't like use lyrics from a song in a book in a meaningful way because you end up like running into copyright and all that kind of bullshit, which
Well, if you give them quotes and you quote them the exact song and the
yeah.
person that wrote it owns it at the ending of the book, you're legally good then.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, so I'm probably gonna do that. But anyways, as of now, like all of the chapters are titled after a song that kind of fits the theme of the chapter, and I have like a small quote from the song within it, and it's a fun way to kind of like introduce a soundtrack to the book. So like there's I've got like a YouTube essentially. I'm gonna put it on Spotify and all these, but there'll be like a playlist of all of the songs that correspond to each chapter. So I'm not a musical person. I've never, played an instrument and like I think that in a lot of ways music is the highest form of art because you have to be able to condense, and I like with your especially with like what you're doing. You've got big ideas within your music. Like these are not, AC/DC
Yeah.
songs that aren't talking about anything. Like these are big ideas and they have to be
No
condensed.
cherry pie for me.
Yeah, exactly, and they have to be condensed into a form that is entertaining, but also conveys the depth of the
Yeah.
topics that you're discussing within it. And, like, in a book, you've got a lot of space and a lot of time to work with, where in music, you've got very little and you have to really be able to hit hard in a short amount of time. So, I've always respected musicians for being able to do that, and especially like with punk rock. A lot of the punk rock that I listen to, these songs are like 2 minutes long, 2.5 minutes
Mhm.
or something like that.
That's
And
really fast. Yeah.
yeah, and within these like 2.5 minutes, like man, they're conveying a lot of very deep information that really makes you think. And you can listen to a 2 minute song or a 3 minute song or a 5 minute song and think about it for an hour because there's so
Yeah.
much going on within it. So I've always respected people for being able to do that. And I think it's such a creative way to add depth and a different element to your book.
Well, that's the entire reason we put up the elbow is to help wake people up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're about at an hour here, so we'll get out of here
Okay.
and let you got family in town for Thanksgiving or do
Oh
anything
yeah.
cool
Yeah.
yesterday? Excellent. Well, I'll
Yeah.
let you go enjoy some time with your family, and I'll be interested to see the final version of your book when it comes out in March. And we'll probably, March is a few months off, so maybe we'll do this again when your book comes out, and we can kind of go over it more and throw some pictures up possibly, and do some cool things.
Yeah.
And
Great.
I like I said again, your music was great, and I think I'll probably end the
Thanks.
I'll cut out one of your songs and put it at the end of the podcast here, so
Great.
somebody can
Great.
listen
Yeah.
to it and get a feel for what's going on with it. So again,
That's
thank you so
awesome.
much for
Appreciate
coming
that. Thank you.
on. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a happy Thanksgiving weekend.
they take no fame. Spectres seeking suits who play no game. They trace the cash, decode the lie, then slip in silent, no goodbye. From boardrooms built on blood and greed, they balance books the world don't read. No courtroom, no appeal, just the sound of fate's own steel. Rising from the rot that fed their health, adjusters hunting the halls of wealth. For every soul that's bought and sold, they trade your empire in for coal. You built your kingdom tall and wide, but the adjusters walk the darker side. Or a penthouse screen beneath the glass, their mask of power shatters fast. They saw the layoffs, smell the lies, and marked your name before sunrise. No folio summed, no alibis, just final breath beneath the skies. They move where vengeance learns to grow. In silence they will take what's owed. Rising from the rot that fed their health, adjusters hunting the halls of wealth. For every soul that's bought and sold, they trade your empire in for coal. You built your kingdom tall and wide, but the adjusters walk the darker side. One by one the towers fall, insiders whisper, heard the call. A signal cast through covered code. Your soul was sold a year ago. You never thought they'd come for you, but truth turns monsters out of view. Rising from the rot that fed their health, adjusters hunting the halls of wealth. Cameras catch the final scene, just silence where the kings had been. A ledger scorched, a name erased, no statue left, no claims of grace. The higher up, the harder fall. They answer now, the unseen call. Rising from the rot that fed their health, adjusters hunting the halls of wealth. For every soul that's bought and sold, they trade your empire in for coal. You built your kingdom tall and wide, but the adjusters walk the darker side.